Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother and sister, welcome back to Islamic Notes channel. Europe has long been known as a continent with a modern lifestyle, full of technology and a distance from religion. However, amidst this tide of secularism, an unexpected phenomenon has emerged. From a large nation known for its discipline, strength, and rationality. Germany. The country that was once a symbol of European military might is now witnessing a growing wave of spiritual awakening, not from religious scholars or ordinary citizens, but from people who have long lived in a harsh world, the military. Yes, more than 3,000 active duty German soldiers from the Bundeswehr have reportedly converted to Islam in recent years. This is a significant number, considering that the military profession is synonymous with discipline, strength, and a generally skeptical view of religion. Yet now in German military barracks, the faint call to prayer can be heard at dawn, and soldiers can be seen bowing their heads in prostration during their training. This phenomenon is not simply a change in religious identity. For many of them, converting to Islam is a long journey in search of the meaning of life. They weren't simply people who suddenly followed a trend, but individuals who had experienced much inner turmoil, battle, and even loss in their lives. Many German soldiers had been deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, or Syria on international missions with NATO. There they encountered Muslim communities firsthand, not in an ideological war, but in the realities of everyday life. They witnessed people who were humble, poor, and even living under threat, yet remained resilient, patient, and full of faith. A soldier named Michael Huber, now known by his Islamic name Mikhail, once said in an interview, "I came to Afghanistan armed with weapons, but I returned with a new faith. I saw Muslims who continued to pray calmly even as bombs fell around them. That's when I began to wonder what made them so strong." Mikhail's story is just one of thousands of similar stories. Soldiers who had departed with fear and hatred of Islam now found peace in its teachings. For them, Islam is no longer something frightening, as often portrayed by Western media, but rather a path to inner peace and balance in life. This phenomenon also proves that human nature always seeks truth, even when raised in a secular and materialistic system. The human heart, no matter how hardened, will always yearn for the peace that only faith can provide. Now, amidst the modern German military, a new spiritual force is growing. Those who once marched with weapons in hand now line up for congregational prayer. Those who once fought on the battlefield now struggle in the field of their hearts to become obedient and faithful servants of Allah. And this phenomenon raises a major question in the minds of many people around the world. Why did so many German soldiers choose Islam? What did they find in this religion that made them willing to leave their old lives behind? This question brings us to the next stage of the story, the beginning of spiritual awareness among German soldiers, and how Islam transformed their outlook on life from within. The origins and reasons why many German soldiers converted to Islam. The phenomenon of thousands of German soldiers embracing Islam did not happen overnight. This change was born of long experience, inner conflict, and a profound spiritual journey. Many of them first encountered Islam not from books, not from preaching, but from the realities of the battlefield, from direct interaction with Muslims in the countries they visited as peacekeepers. Following Germany's involvement in various international missions with NATO in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and Mali, thousands of German soldiers lived among Muslim communities for months, even years. They witnessed firsthand how Muslims continued to pray 5 times a day, fast, and help others in the midst of war. For most soldiers raised in a secular environment, this was a deeply moving experience. An officer named Sebastian Kruger, now known as the Muslim Bilal, once recounted, "We came to Afghanistan with uniforms and weapons, but they welcomed us with smiles and hot tea. I wondered how people whose homes had been destroyed by war could still be so friendly and prayerful. That's when I began to think, there's something very profound about this religion." This experience was repeated in many places. In Afghan or Syrian villages, German soldiers saw Muslims living simply, but their faces filled with serenity. They witnessed fathers attending the mosque, children studying the Quran, and mothers preparing meals for breaking the fast despite frequent power outages and scarce water. This scene made many of them reflect. In the harsh and stressful military world, they saw the extraordinary inner strength of Muslims, a strength that came not from weapons or rank, but from faith. In addition to the effects of the battlefield, many German soldiers also experienced spiritual and existential crises after returning from military missions. They saw death, suffering, and destruction, things that made them ask themselves, what is all this for? What is the meaning of life? Who is really in control of it all? Many of them tried to find answers in the church, philosophy, or psychology, but found no peace. Eventually, they began reading the Quran, watching Islamic sermons on YouTube, or discussing it with the Muslim community in their cities. And from there, one by one, their hearts opened. Another soldier, Johannes Keller, now Yusuf, said, I read the Quran simply out of curiosity, but the more I read, the more I felt the honesty and sincerity in every verse. Islam answers questions the modern world can't, about who I am, why I live, and where I will return. Another reason many German soldiers were attracted to Islam was because its core values closely mirrored those of military life. Discipline, responsibility, courage, honesty, and adherence to rules. In Islam, a Muslim is taught to wake up on time, maintain cleanliness, uphold trust, and obey one's leader as long as it is good. These values made many soldiers feel connected to Islam. A captain named Andreas Müller, now known as Hamza, said Islam is a religion of order. There are times for prayer, rules for eating, working, and fighting. Everything has a guide. That makes me feel like Islam is a perfect system of life. Islam also teaches jihad not only in the sense of war, but also in the sense of fighting against one's own desires and evil. For the soldiers, this concept was very relevant. They felt they could shift their soldiering spirit from the battlefield to the spiritual realm, namely the struggle to improve themselves. Many soldiers initially held negative views of Islam due to media influence. However, after getting to know Muslims firsthand, that view completely changed. They realized that Islam is not a religion of terrorism, but rather a religion that teaches peace and compassion. This change in perspective then became a door to guidance. When prejudices are shattered, hearts are opened, and the light of truth begins to shine through. This phenomenon demonstrates one important point. Allah's guidance can come from anywhere, even to those who have fought in Muslim lands. Some of them are now devout Muslims, active in preaching, and an inspiration to their colleagues in the military. The journey after converting to Islam, challenges and a new life for German soldiers. Converting to Islam for German soldiers was not the end of the journey, but rather the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. This journey took them through tough trials, from social pressure, discrimination, to inner conflict between their new faith and the military life they were living. Yet through it all, they found something they had been missing: true peace and meaning in life. After reciting the Shahada, most German soldiers who converted to Islam began to gradually change their lifestyles. They learned about the 5 daily prayers, fasting, and Islamic morals, despite the busy military schedule and often unsupportive environment. For some, this change felt like a rebirth. Previously, their lives had been filled with pressure, stress, and anxiety due to their experiences in war. But after learning about Islam, their hearts felt calmer and their minds clearer. A former sergeant named Michael Huber, Mikhail, said, "Before converting to Islam, I often had nightmares. I felt guilty about what happened on the battlefield. But after I started praying and reading the Quran, my heart felt more at peace. I knew that Allah was still giving me a chance to change." For Mikhail and thousands of other soldiers, Islam was not just a religion, but a path to spiritual healing. They learned to forgive themselves, regret past mistakes, and mend their relationship with their Creator. As these soldiers began their new lives as Muslims, they did not walk alone. The Muslim community in Germany, including Turkish, Arab, Bosnian, and local converts, warmly welcomed them. Mosques in major cities like Berlin, Frankfurt, and Munich became spiritual havens for these converts. They studied the Quran, attended Islamic faith classes, and even received guidance from local imams and religious scholars. One mosque that actively supports converts to Islam is the Darul Islam Mosque in Berlin, which has a special program for military personnel. This program not only teaches the basics of Islam, but also provides psychological and social guidance to help them adapt to a secular work environment. The mosque's Imam Abdul Karim Al-Mani said, "We don't just teach them how to pray. We also help them understand that becoming Muslim doesn't mean abandoning their profession, but rather making it more meaningful. Islam is not a barrier, but a guide for life." Many of these soldiers go on to become active members of the Muslim community. They participate in social activities, share experiences, and even help other new converts adjust. However, their journey is certainly not easy. In the highly strict and nationalistic military environment, being Muslim can raise suspicion or even rejection. Some of them face pointed questions from colleagues. Why did you choose that religion? Are you still loyal to the country? Some have even been transferred because they are considered risky. However, many superiors are beginning to understand that religious choice is a personal right protected by German law. The Bundeswehr, German military itself, is now opening up to religious diversity. They have appointed Muslim spiritual advisors tasked with providing spiritual guidance to Muslim military personnel, including new converts. This policy is an important step in respecting religious rights in the modern military environment. Many military commanders acknowledge that after converting to Islam, converted soldiers show significant positive changes. They become more patient, more disciplined, and more caring towards their comrades. One commander said in an interview with Deutsche Welle, "I have several men who have converted to Islam. They have become more focused, calmer, and more responsible. I think this religion gives them incredible mental stability. Their lives are now filled with new routines, waking up early for the morning prayer, fasting during Ramadan, even during military training, and reading the Quran in their free time. All of this is done diligently and with conviction." This phenomenon is slowly changing German society's perception of Islam. Through the attitudes and examples of these Muslim converts, many people are beginning to see Islam in a different light, not as a threat, but as a source of peace and morality. Some German media outlets are even now featuring the inspiring stories of Muslim soldiers. They are seen as a bridge between two worlds, the secular West and the spiritual world of Islam. Today, these Muslim converts live with two identities, as soldiers defending their homeland and as Muslims submitting to Allah. They don't see these two identities as contradictory, but rather as complementary. As Mikhail concluded his interview, "I still love Germany, but now I also love Allah. I'm fighting not only for my country, but also for my heart." German government and media reactions. The social impact of thousands of soldiers converting to Islam. When news of thousands of German soldiers converting to Islam began to spread, reactions from the German public and government varied. Some welcomed it as evidence of religious freedom and the openness of modern society. Others, however, expressed concern, even suspicion, that this change could impact the image and ideology of the military. This phenomenon is not just about religion, it is also about national identity, integration, and Germany's future as a multicultural nation. Major German media outlets such as Der Spiegel, Deutsche Welle, DW, and Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, FAZ, began highlighting this phenomenon in the early 2020s. Initially, news about soldiers converting to Islam appeared sporadically, simply inspiring stories of soldiers finding inner peace. But as the numbers grew to thousands, public attention began to focus on this phenomenon. Some media outlets wrote articles with a positive tone, portraying Islam as offering peace and a new direction in life for those who had grappled with the trauma of war. However, some media outlets have written cautiously, highlighting the possibility of radicalization or identity conflict within the military. However, after numerous in-depth reports, no evidence of a threat to military stability has been found. On the contrary, ample evidence suggests that soldiers who convert to Islam are more disciplined, calmer, and more focused on their duties. A journalist for Deutsche Welle wrote, "They are not radicals, they are seekers of truth. The Islam they practice is a peaceful Islam, which teaches responsibility and compassion." The German government recognizes that this phenomenon cannot be ignored. The Bundeswehr, German armed forces, now has a more open policy towards religious diversity within the military. In addition to Christian chaplains and Jewish rabbis, the German military has also begun providing Muslim spiritual advisors, military imams, to Muslim soldiers. The German Ministry of Defense stated that this step is part of the country's commitment to religious freedom and moral support for all soldiers, regardless of their faith. At a press conference in Berlin, a Bundeswehr spokesperson said, "We respect every soldier who chooses their faith. As long as they are loyal to the country and perform their duties well, personal belief is a right protected by law." This move received support from many parties, including Germany's largest Islamic organization, the Zentralrat der Muslimen, German Muslim Council. They praised the government's courage in recognizing Islam as part of national life. Reactions to this phenomenon within German society have been mixed. Most young people believe that a person's decision to convert to Islam is a form of personal freedom that should be respected. However, some conservative and nationalist groups still view this with suspicion. Some of them are still influenced by old stereotypes that associate Islam with violence. However, public attitudes are gradually changing, especially after seeing the positive impact of these new converts. Lectures, seminars, and inspirational stories from converted soldiers are now frequently featured in various public forums. Many schools and universities in Germany have also begun holding open discussions about Islam as a religion of peace and moral discipline. This phenomenon not only impacted Germany, but also resonated throughout Europe. Many international media outlets began discussing a new spiritual wave among Western society, especially among professional groups such as soldiers, doctors, and scientists. In France, England, and the Netherlands, some former soldiers also began following in the footsteps of their German colleagues and embracing Islam. They claimed to have found in Islam an inner peace that the modern world had never offered. This phenomenon marked a major shift. Islam was no longer considered foreign to Europe, but rather part of the new face of Western civilization. Previously, Islam in Germany was often perceived negatively by the media and populist politicians. Now, however, the true stories of soldiers who converted to Islam have become a breath of fresh air, changing the way many people view it. Islam is no longer seen as an outsider religion, but as a source of morality, discipline, and inner peace. Even many political leaders are beginning to recognize that Islam is part of modern Germany. Angela Merkel, former German chancellor, once said, "Islam is now part of Germany. Many Muslims live, work, and defend this country. They are part of us." This statement is even more relevant today, as thousands of German soldiers themselves have chosen Islam as their way of life.